and welcome. You're tuning in to Unbreakable Hope with me, your host, Jessica Rose. This podcast is all about seeking the light. In each episode, we chat with someone who has either overcome the darkness or who is actively spreading light within their own community. So let's jump into today's episode. Thank you so much for coming on today to be my guest. I know we got to meet through the Petite USA system, and I'm really excited to dive further into your story today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to see you again because I feel like the petite pageant happened so fast. And like you don't always get time to like really get to know somebody. Like we're always moving. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I would love if our interviews were recorded so we could go back and learn a little bit more about each other.
yeah.
One thing that I love is I see how active you are advocating for your cause. And I think that's so cool because there's a lot of women, like you said, it goes so fast and you meet women and you don't really get to know who they are and what they're advocating for, but you know, everybody's got something. So I want to pass it over to you so you can introduce yourself to our audience so we can learn more about you and what you're so passionate about.
Yeah. So for those that don't know me, my name is Cindy Sánchez and I'm now your Miss Universal Petite Mexico 2026. I'm so excited. But aside from that, I'm a mom of two, a domestic violence survivor, and an author to my own workbook that is in English and Spanish. So I'm really excited to get to talk about that more because it's been like an ongoing project for me. Like also as a survivor myself, being able to like share my story. A couple years ago, I would not be able. I didn't think I would like be here talking to you or anyone or sharing my story at all, much less like writing a whole workbook, right? So a little bit about that, like my why I did that was because after I experienced domestic violence and being a single mom, and I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Like, how do I protect myself and my children? And so I was in a 3 year long court process, which was just very difficult for me mentally and emotionally. And so, what really helped me like keep my mind sane was journaling, right? And once I was done with all this process, I realized I have a lot of good like information and like tips that I can offer to other women that are, experiencing the same. And also learning that there's a lot of women in my community that maybe don't speak English, which is why I felt important for it to be in Spanish as well. So my workbook has journal prompts, it has legal resources, and really just for me, it's like I wanted it to be a roadmap that mirrors my healing journey, if that makes sense. Like I want it to be like a tool where they can have like, okay, I'm not alone in this, right? Because it can be very isolating going through court, especially if you have children or just facing your abuser. So basically, yeah, I just want to help women feel like they are not alone and that there is a brighter future ahead of them. That is not their destination.
That's a hard situation. I think that a lot of women, and obviously there's men too that go through this, but for a lot of women, we all experience domestic violence on some level.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I had an ex-boyfriend pull a gun on me and there were some other things that happened, but I never went through court. I had an issue with stalking and harassment, but I had an amazing support system that eventually stepped in. There was some kind of delays, and I think that's something that every woman I've talked to who's gone through domestic violence, one of the big things is having a support system that knows it's okay to step in and say something. But I never had to go through the legal process and I didn't have children. That
Yeah.
creates a whole other level of stress. You said 3 years in court process. Like what was that like? You know, obviously you're going through this horrible experience with the domestic violence, but then finally getting to a point that says, I've got to do something more about it, and you seek legal help that takes you on this 3 year journey.
Yeah. So, um, first I want to say, yeah, like I feel like not a lot of people resonate with like my journey, maybe, or like everyone talks about domestic violence. And yes, unfortunately, like a lot of us have experienced it in some form, whether they realize it or not, right? But for me, it's like I didn't know anyone else that experienced that and yet still have to face your abuser due to having children. And just navigating the court system, it can be tricky. There's delays. If you're dealing with an abuser that is difficult, just very back and forth, it just delayed the whole process. And for me, it just felt like I don't know how, like I just needed to keep my mental strength and emotional strength. Obviously, it tested me. It tested my faith. But I think, once I overcame all this and navigated it with support, it's very important, right? Like to have these organizations like advocates that really help you, like they're present with you at the hearings or even after speaking with you, connecting you to other resources, right? Maybe not everyone can afford therapy, and so that's why another reason for me, like I was a single mom of two. My kids were like two under 2 years old. I don't have time. My hands were so busy, so I was just journaling, right? And so, like, yeah, I feel like that really helped me to just release whatever emotions, not keep it bottled inside. And you just never know, right, who else is experiencing that, or other survivors don't feel comfortable telling others what they went through. I myself dealt with shame and guilt. I am former military also, and so I felt like people would judge me, like, how could you let that happen to you, right? Because unfortunately, I did receive those type of comments. So I'm like, you know what? Can't trust these people. So yeah, it was very isolating. But we are here now today, and that's why I just feel very passionate about helping other women, just realizing that they can and will overcome all these emotions. And if they have to, go through this legal process, I give them advice and connect them to legal resources and just kind of share my story so that they know, like, hey, someone else also went through it. I can overcome this also.
I love that you brought up the shame and the guilt, especially from being a service member. I had similar feelings. I remember I was in a sorority at the time and I was like the oldest in my sorority. So one, I felt like embarrassed that I'm this older person. I should have it together, right? This shouldn't
Yeah.
happen to me. And then also serving in the Marine Corps to being like, I have a boyfriend who put a gun to my head. Like, what? How did? And then it made me think, like, how did I get to this point? What did I do? Right, all that internally. So I love that you bring that up. Is that shame and guilt piece, and how horrible people are to say, "Oh, how could you let that happen to you?" But it's amazing when you look back and you see, like like the gaslighting and all these different things where you don't really notice it in the moment, and it's almost this like buildup of things over time, and you look back and you're like, "Oh shoot!" So
Yeah, all
this
those signs were,
you're
yeah,
in the moment. You
yeah,
you sometimes like you're was it they say you're too close to the tree to see the forest, right?
yeah,
Sometimes you're too in it. And you also have this extra layer of being a mother, and you have
mhm,
your children, and that's your children's father, and
yeah,
all of those different emotions that come with it. That's something that I never had to experience. So like you said, like your journey, not everyone may be able to resonate with it,
mhm,
but there's going to be so much benefit in your beautiful workbook because you mentioned going to court alone and having organizations to support you,
yeah.
right? What are some of the organizations that maybe you partner with today, or some of them, if you'd like to mention, that you felt provided you the biggest supports to help you get your life back going in a direction that you're proud of and enjoying?
Yeah. Yeah, so I partner with Bridges to Safety. It's a legal resource center here in my city, St. Paul, Minnesota, and they help survivors file out petitions for harassment restraining orders and orders for protection. And then they connect you with St. Paul Intervention Project, which is another organization that has advocates and attorneys at no cost. And obviously, that is right, such a great help and relief for survivors like myself. And I am so grateful for these organizations, which is why I have donated my workbooks to them. Just my way of giving back and just helping other survivors. But on top of that, other places here in Minnesota is Esperanza United. They are Latino based. They help women of color that speak Spanish that probably don't speak English. So that's why I also made my workbook in Spanish because, yeah, just to expand the audience, like the other survivors that probably, I mean, I just can't imagine like navigating the court system or just the healing process alone. And it's like, there's no like other resources, right? Or like, basically, yeah, I wanted to have my workbook to be available to them that someone also went through this and it's available in their language.
And you bring up two really good points that are also these huge barriers to receiving help after a domestic violence situation or during the situation, right? Is the financial part. So a lot of people get put to isolation financially and that they're being financially controlled, whatever that looks like, whether they're not able to work. I knew somebody in that relationship. The man refused to let his wife work because that was his way to be able to control her and to
Yeah.
keep her from having her own money. Therefore, she couldn't leave him. Um, and so having that, or maybe both working, but still controlling the account or threatening through money. And your other good point, which I think is so beautiful, is having it in both languages, because then that's another way of isolation, right? And, in America, like everything's in English. So who knows if they came here to America by choice, or maybe they've been here and they weren't afforded the opportunity to learn English, being like isolated to stay home, not allowed to have friends. I know I used to speak Spanish a lot more than I can now because I was surrounded by it. Like my colleagues, when I was in San Diego, they spoke Spanish, my best friend, so you don't use it, you lose it. And I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like 10, 15 years ago, I was able to speak so much more. And now I feel lost in Duolingo. Like, I know I used to be able to say these things. So, being isolated from an environment, I think that's another thing. So, the financial and the language piece is preventing them from being able to get support and move on or move out or whatever that looks like best for them, which sometimes I know that people have to move much further distances to create that separation from the person that's been abusing them.
Yeah. And I want to like touch on that too. So, like in my workbook, I do touch on financial abuse, narcissistic abuse, just because, like, for me, myself personally, I had no idea what that was until after. And I'm like, oh my God, all this makes sense. If only I had known, right? And it's like just giving them that knowledge of, right, what narcissistic abuse is, financial abuse, ways that people isolate you. Like when you're in it, in the relationship, to you it might seem like normal, right? But until after you're out of the relationship, you realize, oh my God, this person was, right, isolating me on purpose, and just giving them that knowledge that, like, this is what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like for me that was very important to like put in my workbook because I myself didn't know all these terms, right? Narcissistic abuse, financial abuse. It happened to me. I was like, "Oh my gosh." So it can be so like tricky, right, when you're in it because you're afraid of this person and you kind of just, for me I was vulnerable. I mean, we had children, so I thought, okay, I need to be with this person, right, to give my kids the, what is it called, the two parent household. But yeah, no, definitely not. So
That's another great point about abuse. And there's I think a lot of the generation that's growing up is used to be like, the red flags here, the red flags here, and not noticing when you're in it. But then also those conflicting values, like you're just saying, like, I want my kids to grow up with both their parents and have this like whole family. So then you find yourself being more willing to look the other way, I guess, or not put as much emphasis on the things that are happening to you. I mean, I know that was something like I experienced was, oh, or the excuses, always giving excuses like, oh, they're just having a bad day. Or
Yeah.
oh, they're just really stressed out. That's why they're yelling, or that's why they're acting like this. But it's also something that I think that when it comes to abuse, we is like societal we, right? Community we is putting the emphasis on emotional abuse because that's kind of where it starts, right? Is it starts with just this little bit here and there, and then it builds, and it's building for both parties, I think, to where the abuse just continues to get more aggressive and more aggressive. And I dealt with this on a professional basis where we were actually told when we filed a complaint and a grievance against this person that, well, just because they're yelling at people doesn't mean they're a bad person. And it's like the aggression, what they're
Yeah.
saying, their body language when they're saying it, like that is precursors. Like, why aren't we taking this more seriously? Do you feel like you see that a lot or hear that a lot too from different people? Like, really just kind of maybe the making of excuses for people's behavior?
Yeah, and well, like for me, like cultural wise too, that's another thing. Like, I don't know what it's called in English, but Spanish machismo, right? Like where a guy has this like big inflated ego or like they need to assert their dominance. So toxic. But unfortunately, it's very common in my culture, like Hispanic cultures, and women just assume these like gender roles and like you said, tolerate like them raising their voice at you. To me, no, that I'm not tolerating that, right? But like in our culture, it seemed as normal. And it's like right that power imbalance and just respect, honestly. Like you do not need to be yelling at me. But yeah, that's how it starts, right? Like raising their voice or just like making a big deal out of something, and it made me feel like what am I doing wrong? And little by little as time went by, I was shrinking myself, right? I gave my power away because I'm like, okay, I'm doing something wrong and I don't want to upset him. I need to make right, be on good terms because we have children. No. No. So yeah, definitely it's unfortunate that like a lot of times some victims are not taken serious just because there is not actual physical abuse, right? Like, oh, he hit me or left a mark. That's like emotional abuse is where it starts, like the name calling, insulting, raising your voice, and I don't know, like it's unfortunate that it's not taken seriously in court maybe in the beginning, right? Because it's like, well, do you have evidence?
Mm, mhm.
And that's probably another reason why some victims don't even try because they probably don't have that physical evidence or like any pictures of say like a mark, right? So yeah, I think hopefully, the more we raise awareness and like just give people more knowledge, like this is how it starts. I mean, my hope is that like just more women like stop, like walk away before it escalates. Just giving people that knowledge, like, yes, raising your voice and all those emotional abuse signs like you need to walk away. Do not tolerate that. Not just to like avoid that, right? But to give like your own self-respect.
And you bring up such a valuable point there too, is the cultural differences as well. I was speaking to a woman I met in another pageant system I competed in, and she was telling me a story of she helps a lot of women who immigrate here from Ukraine, and that there was a woman who was in a domestic violence relationship. And she said, "You're in America now, honey. You don't have to stay with him." And how much, when she said that, I thought, oh my gosh, like that's such a good point is that we have a system here where we can get divorced, but still we're this melting pot of all these different cultures. So sometimes when people come here, they don't know that they have that option. They
Right.
weren't given that option before, or it wasn't culturally accepted before. I mean, there's still some pockets in America where it's, oh, you're getting a divorce, but I think it's something the more we need to talk about. And I remember having a conversation, and I can't remember who it was with, but we were talking about divorce and how like what instigates the divorce? When does the divorce happen? And I love the perspective where it came to abuse. So the divorce actually happened by the person who caused the abuse. And this was, we were having like a religion chat because they were saying, like, oh, in my religion, it's not okay to have a divorce. So, like, as the woman saying, like, I want to leave my husband because he's abusive, and everyone's like, oh, no, you can't leave your husband, you can't divorce him. But going back to the divorce happened the moment he was violent with her. He caused
Oh,
that. So it's not on her to
yeah.
like initiate the divorce. And I think that happens a lot too through culture and religion. It's almost like the woman's blamed or the victim, right? Again, men also experience it, just women at higher proportions. So the person who's being abused is almost like judged for leaving and not sticking with their spouse or partner, whoever is the one that's abusing them. And I think that's something that's just, it's such a shame, again, is like society, as our communities, that we're not seeing and understanding that and being more supportive when things like that happen.
Yeah. I feel like too, or like how people say, well, why didn't you leave? Like leave sooner, or just, yeah, like it's always the victim being blamed. And so for me, that was like a big thing, like that I put in my workbook is like letting go of that shame and guilt because unfortunately, like it could be coming from your own family, like in my case, or friends. And it just can get very isolating and just take a toll on your confidence, just everything, honestly. So I think uh, being able to like let others know, right, that like this is not okay and you shouldn't feel ashamed for something that you did not do yourself. That's something that I always tell myself, like, why should I feel guilty or embarrassed that I went through this? Those were not my actions, it was theirs. So that's one thing that I emphasize in my workbook is like, it is not your fault. And you shouldn't have to carry that guilt, that blame, or that embarrassment because that's how I felt. But I'm like, no, I didn't do that. They should be the ones carrying that,
Yeah.
not the victim. Yeah.
I love that. I love that perspective. And I think that's really valuable for anyone listening that's experienced it or is currently experiencing it. Is you're right. It's not your actions, it's theirs. But the sad thing is that who really gets the critiques from it. As we're talking about like the emotions that you feel with it, right? There's the shame, there's the guilt, there's obviously like the questioning and all that. Like, why didn't you leave sooner? As if it's like so easy, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but another emotion that I think of a lot. I didn't feel like I really went through this with my situation. Uh, I think it was like maybe years later I thought about it was the grief of it all. So grieving for me and mine, it was a boyfriend. I'd only been with him for like 2 years. You know, obviously it escalated um, to some very severe situations. But when I look back and I think more of it, it's grieving those 2 years that I lost, being stuck in that relationship with that person, or feeling like I was stuck, right? Feeling like I couldn't speak up and I couldn't admit to what was going on with me. I actually did. I finally did tell somebody, and like you were saying, like sometimes it's the family or the people closest to you. And it was somebody who I thought was going to support me. But that particular person actually told me it was it was within my sorority. And that person told me that I basically needed to suck it up and I needed to be at the meeting that night. And if I wasn't at the meeting that night, she was going to make sure I was fined for missing this mandatory meeting. And I'm like, what? I'm so
I'm so
confused.
sorry you want to. Wow.
So
That is,
yeah, but then grieving those relationships too when they break. So grieving the life that you had, the life that you thought you were going to have with the father of your children, but then also, as you're saying, like sometimes it's the families or the friends and the people making the horrible comments to you is grieving the loss of those relationships. Do you feel like you can kind of connect with that emotion also playing along the way as well?
Yes, definitely. Definitely obviously with the person, right? Like grieving what I thought I had or the future, like letting go of like, oh my God, we had all these plans and it never came to fruition. And actually I do kind of talk about that in my workbook, that it's okay to grieve, right? Like please feel these emotions, do not keep them inside. But for me, I also like want to change people's perspective, like rather than seeing it as, oh, this is it, my life is over. Like see it as a way to like literally rise like the phoenix, right? Like in a way, yes, you did die because you have to let go of that identity of who you were with that person. You are no longer that person, right? You're no longer playing small. Now you get to speak up. You get to, I don't know, like for me, I'm like, this ending started a new beginning for me, right? For me personally, I got into pageantry as a way to regain my confidence after dealing with all that. And it's helped me so much. Obviously, I'm right here. But yeah, it's really helped me to regain my confidence, and I think that's just like the change of perspective that I want to give survivors. Like, okay, yes, you went through this, but you're not stuck in that identity. You have so much to look forward to, right? Like, it's unfortunate, right? But like, it's a part of life where you do have to like grieve. Um, and I guess just not staying stuck in that mindset where my life is over or this happened, to stay in that victim mentality and to like become a new person, be stronger, more vocal, right? Have boundaries, have the confidence to leave at the very first sign, not right feel that shame like, oh, no one's gonna want me anymore, or I can't believe I let this happen to me. No, you're done. That version of you is gone, and now you get to be whoever you want to be. That's how I felt like for me, help me. um, but yeah.
Yeah, like a phoenix, right? I always love that analogy. Phoenix rising from the ashes is that life and that version of you is done and you're moving forward and you're growing in your strength and your confidence and that you still have a purpose in this world. I love how you just carry yourself so beautifully. And even just being around you when we were in Chicago, you just had this like beautiful spirit about you. And I know that you have to be carrying that within your community when you advocate. Is there certain things that you love doing throughout the year when you advocate, or things that are maybe coming up in your advocacy work that you're looking forward to?
So just a couple months ago, I did partner with Esperanza United, where they did their first Congressional Week of Action. And I was like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing, but they were so helpful in letting me know, just to advocate for other survivors here in my state of Minnesota, to talk to state representatives, just to really talk to them that how important it is to fund these organizations, because unfortunately there were going to be cuts. So that to me was a good experience as a survivor myself, like being able to share my story, right? And advocating for others that probably are not at my level of healing journey yet. So yeah, it's something that's still ongoing. Um, I'm fairly new to that, but it's helped me with my confidence and just sharing my story, because even last year, yeah, no. Like I'm a work in progress. And so yeah, that's why I feel like I just want to like inspire other women, like you don't have to be perfect. I'm not perfect. So,
And I
yeah.
think it's so important to be able to advocate, especially for legislators. I make this joke all the time is that it's always people making laws or making policies that are never actually affected by them. So for people who think that, oh, what is it, having a week, we have a lot of different weeks like that at our Capital 2 for different topics, but it really is important because somebody steps up and says, hey, I want to be a legislator. I want to represent my community, but that doesn't mean they've had every experience. And that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that they understand the things. And I think it's easy when we're looking at numbers, that qualitative stuff, or quantitative stuff, right? We can just go down there and look at the numbers, but it's the qualitative stuff that really matters. So it's people like yourself being willing to step up. And like you said, not everyone's in your healing journey. So being able to step up where you are and say, hey, I would like to talk to you about what those numbers actually mean and what those numbers actually do for people. And it's so valuable, but I think people like like community societies don't realize how valuable something like that is. So there's so many laws that can go into effect. I know Oklahoma, we passed a law to where we're stricter on things like stalking, right?
Oh,
We need to start at the beginning, like we said earlier, rather than let's wait until it's way worse and then we take it seriously. I was just talking about the laws. So we had a law that, and I forget the exact details. I should have looked this up, but we have a law where we take stalking more seriously in Oklahoma, and just how as telling our stories to legislators so they know more. So when laws are enacted, like they're actually helpful for the people they're supposed to be helping.
yeah. Yeah, and like when I spoke with the state representatives and Esperanza United, I think I was the only one in Minnesota. So I was like, oh my gosh. But like, or like the only survivor. So, and obviously they would rather, it makes more of an impact when you have a survivor voice, right? Or someone that represents or that is actually affected by these laws that, right, should be passed and funded. So to me, I mean, I'm proud of myself because I never would have thought that I would do something like that and just maybe, motivating other survivors to speak up and use their voice and not stay silent, right? Like, it really has been healing for me being able to write my workbook, advocate for these programs because it's giving me purpose, right? And just healing that, okay, I went through this and now I get to help others and use my voice to actually make that impact to keep helping others in ways direct or indirectly. So that's what I love.
Yes, I love it so much. So where can people get your workbook? Obviously, we'll have links in the description below, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's available on Amazon. The link is in my bio, and you'll be linking it also. I'm excited. I've actually had people reach out to me, email me that it's helped them, and I don't know, that just warms my heart because I'll be honest, like for me, I was like, well, who am I to write a workbook? But like, it's actually helped people, and it's really just helped me to feel better as a survivor and just knowing that my work brings value to others. So
You're definitely
that's what's
putting good out
important to
there, girl.
me.
So with this, your pageant journey, we've talked a little bit about that and how you're using this platform and you are now the Mrs. Mexico Petite. I would love
Yeah.
to, what's the next step in your pageant journey and how can people support you? Uh, the next Universal's in June,
June, yeah, 2026.
and I think they do People's Choice as well, right?
I believe so, but I'll be honest, I don't ever really
Participate in
like,
that.
yeah, just like,
Well, maybe you could just share that you have that Universal's coming up and like then you could say like what your like Instagram, whatever social media is the best way to connect with you and
okay,
follow along, something like that.
yeah. Um, so yeah, so follow my journey at Universal Petite. I am Ms. Universal Petite Mexico 2026. You can follow me on my personal and only page. It's Sanchez Cindy. Um, yeah. So I'm excited because the fact that it's on a cruise, I have not been on a cruise in years. So
And then being able to connect with so many other women, I think that's great. I know that another good dear friend of ours, Danetta, she is Jamaica Petite,
Oh
and
yeah.
she also has experienced domestic violence. So what a beautiful partnership, and you guys getting to reconnect on a cruise. I'm a little jelly.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'm excited to meet like other women. Like I feel like when I first saw about like Universal PT, I'm like, oh my God, that is so cool. Like all these different countries, right? And all these different women that stand for something, just getting to know other people from the world and their stories, their mission. I don't know, I just feel like for me, being on a platform, right, where you get to expand your voice and reach. I don't know, that's really exciting for me.
Yeah, and you're doing such a beautiful job at it. And the fact that it's in English and in Spanish, you're going to be able to reach so many amazing women. And I love that you're on the universal level because you're going to be able to expand that even further outside the US. So I'm super excited to continue to follow you for your journey and support you and all the amazing work that you're doing. I definitely want to give you an opportunity if there's something that we missed or you have some final thoughts that you want to leave our audience with.
Mm, thank you. And I can't think of anything else right now. Yeah.
Well, you're doing a lot of amazing work, and I love all these little tips. I can't wait to see what is all in your workbook. Like you said, just this growth journey that you were on, and how many people that it's going to be able to support. And all of our experiences, the details may look different, but I think the feelings, a lot of those are the same. And as we talked about the shame and the guilt and the grief, and just knowing that if you're listening to this, that there's other women who have experienced domestic violence and have made it out the other side. So I hope they get your workbook. I hope they're able to share the workbook with others that they know, especially those in need, and are able to continue their healing journey and move on to their purpose in life.
Yes, I agree. And I'm very excited just to be here. And thank you for inviting me on your podcast. I
Well,
appreciate
thank you so
it.
much.
And I think you're doing amazing work, honestly, too. I see everything you do, and I'm like, wow, I
Well,
need to get to that level.
well, thank you so much. I'm so glad that you were a guest. You know, Unbreakable Hope wouldn't be what it was or what it is if it weren't for people coming on and sharing their stories of going through these hard times in life and then coming out the other side. And a lot of us doing just so good in our communities because we know what it feels like to be on that dark side of life.
Yes, thank you. And also, I just wanted to personally say Happy Veterans Day.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you found this episode inspiring, please share it with someone you never know who needs more light in their life. May this serve as a reminder that there's always darkness in the world. Do not let it consume you. Always seek the light. Please take a moment to do the good old subscribe, rate, and review. Your support means so much to me, and it helps me spread more light and love. Until next time, be kind, be loving, be human, and don't ever let anyone steal your hope.